Hi, everybody. Welcome to the live interviews. We are very excited to have our guest, Micky Dolenz, on today. We are going to have a great show. We'll also talk a little bit about what's to come, some great news. But first, welcome to the live interviews. Hi, everybody, and welcome again to the live interviews. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. This is episode 14, I believe. We've been doing this now since May. Obviously, lots of things have changed, and we've found new ways to reach out. Just so you know, if you are joining us for the first time, the live interviews was born out of something that my wife and I founded called the NF Hope Concert. That's N as in Nancy, F as in Frank, as in neurofibromatosis. The reason why we were so passionate about this cause is because our daughter Emma was diagnosed with neurofibromatosis at 9 months old. And while I could spend an entire episode talking about symptoms and what NF means, I can tell you the most important thing for me as a parent is that there is no cure. And until March of this year, there wasn't even any treatment. Now there is one FDA-approved treatment for a special kind of tumor called plexiform neurofibroma, and we are hoping it will soon be have a lot of other treatments to keep it company. But the NF Hope Concert is something that we do annually. We do it in Las Vegas and Chicago and New York. And earlier this year, obviously, because of the pandemic, we were forced to close down our New York and Chicago concerts and turn them into a virtual event. That is where the live interviews was born. Not only did we have a great event back in May where we raised a significant amount of money and brought performers from around the world to perform with us, but we also had so many performers interested that we decided to continue this. And so every week at 11:30 on Thursdays Pacific time, I invite a new guest and we get to meet a celebrity or somebody in the performing arts world who has either touched the NF Hope Concert some way or we're hoping will in the future. Well, today's guest is a great example of that. He did help us out a number of years ago, and we're so excited to have him back. For those of you who don't know of the Monkees, please go back and listen to all the albums, go dig through YouTube and disappear into the Monkees world for a while. But everybody, please welcome Mr. Micky Dolenz. How you doing, Micky?
Hey,
good to have you.
And you.
And I'm glad you're coming to us, happy and healthy from your home.
Yep. This is my little home. Yeah. Well, this is the ceiling of part of my home.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody gets the strangest little views of your house. This is
right.
My bedroom never looks like this, but it does in these episodes.
Yeah.
So let's dive right in. You were, you grew up in a household where you had two acting parents. They're both actors, and you actually started acting at a pretty young age, at like 10 years old. Was it having parents who were actors that sort of made performing a foregone conclusion for you?
Yeah, exactly. I basically thought everybody's parents were actors. They were actors, singers, both also singers, and they met doing a play. And so I grew up in a showbiz family. I was like doing screen tests even at about 6 years old was my first screen test for a movie. I guess my father's agent had said, do you want to have him, do a screen test? And actually, I even did stuff before that. Some of my prenatal work is coming out on ultrasound.
I like that. That's good.
No, so I grew up, I kind of followed in my father's footsteps, but there was never pressure. It was never that kind of, Hollywood stage mother kind of eyes and teeth, honey, eyes and teeth. It was, I don't ever remember having any pressure. I didn't take lessons. I wasn't, going to stage school or anything like that. We lived a very sort of rural life. We lived on little ranches and had horses and chickens and stuff. And
that's awesome.
So it was very normal in that sense. And then, when I was 10 is when I got Circus Boy, the NBC series. Yeah.
Wow. So was there ever a thought in your head that you wanted to do something else, or was it always you were just going to be an actor? You did it and you loved it.
I never thought about it. Like I say, I kind of followed in my father's footsteps, and I never really thought about the future life, career, or anything until excuse me, until well after Circus Boy. And when I was in high school, I went back to normal high school and just became basically a normal kid until I got out of high school. And then my father passed away, and then that was the first time that I really thought about, maybe I ought to get serious and find something to do. I was doing a little bit of acting, but it was more like summer jobs just to make a little money. It was a friend of mine who suggested, because I was always into building stuff, and I was always into science and electronics and all kinds of that kind of life, in school. And a friend of mine said, we should, because he also was into that stuff, and he said, maybe we should go to learn to be architects and start a architectural business, buildings, homes and building stuff. And I was like, that's a great idea. So I started college, studying to be an architect in like 1964 or something like that, out here in Los Angeles. And my plan was to be an architect. And if I couldn't make it, if I couldn't make it as an architect, I would fall back on showbiz.
There's a twist for you.
Yeah.
Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah.
So I know that you were focused. It sounds like you were focused on potentially something else in school. But I think it was that same friend. Was it Rick Klein?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually read an article that he wrote about you, and he told a very funny story that while you may have been focused on becoming an architect, that at one point you took an all-girl typing class, not to learn how to type, but to actually meet girls. Is that really true?
Yes. Well, no, half true. But that was way before. That was in junior high school.
It was. Okay.
That was way before. That was like 1959, or I was in ninth grade or high school, junior high school. Well, now they call it middle school, right?
Right.
Exactly. Ninth grade. And we were running for classes. I don't know if they do that anymore, but you had to, you got your assigned classes like math and English, and then you had to get electives and you pick something to do. And I would usually do woodworking or electronics or shop. And then I needed another class, and I was walking down the hallway, and I liked to write. I did like to write, even at that age. It was after Circus Boy, and I was writing little stories and stuff. And I was walking down the hallways looking for some kind of class to do as an elective. And I walked past this class, and there was all these girls inside, and I was like, I was 14 years old. and I looked inside, and I said, "What's this typing?" I said, "I'm in. You got me with typing." And I took type, and it served me well over the years, because I can type good 60 words a minute, and to this day, and it's helped a lot.
See, these things. If it makes you feel any better, that when I was in school, I was in band and we were picking instruments, and I decided, well, gee, I could choose the flute, and then I'd be sitting in a whole section of girls. Yeah, unfortunately, flute and typing are not the same thing. Yeah, I didn't get a whole lot out of playing flute. Fortunately, I wised up. All right, so let's jump to 1965, right? So you're 19 is when you applied for this new show that was coming up that they put in a
20
journal called The Monkees. You were 20, okay.
20, yeah. It was a pilot, like any other pilot, and like I say, I was doing little acting gigs, usually in the summer. There were shows like I would do guest shots on like Peyton Place and Mr. Novak and all these shows on the usually playing a bad guy. I delinquent, you know, kind of tough, bad kid because of my face. But my voice didn't match. I remember one show I did, I think it was Peyton Place, and I was playing this tough punk kind of kid, and I actually beat up Ryan O'Neal. No, his brother. Sorry, Chris. What was his name? The actor. I can't remember. The younger brother. I
Right.
beat him up, and then Ryan O'Neal came and beat me up, and I had to go back in after we shot the episodes. I had to go back in and dub all my voice, all my parts again, because at that age I was talking like this. Okay, Ryan, I'm gonna beat you up. I sounded like my voice is still pretty high, but back then I sounded like Mickey Mouse. So I had to redub all the. So I was doing, you know, guest stuff,
Right.
you know, mainly like a summer job to make money,
Right.
and studying architecture. And then that year, it was 65. Pilot season came along, and you know, I wasn't a fool. You know, I knew the power of television and stuff. So I was up for a few pilots. In fact, there was 3 or 4 music-oriented kind of pop young shows that year.
Right.
And I was up for like 3 of them or 4 of them. And then and one of them was the Monkees, and I went in, and obviously, you know, I got lucky, and I got the pilot. But when I got the pilot, I didn't even quit school because I knew that pilots
Right.
mostly didn't sell. You know, 1 out of 100 or whatever it was, and so I didn't even quit school. I just took 10 days off to do the pilot, went back to school, but when the pilot sold, then I quit school.
So at that point, I mean, you took my next question. You kind of answered it already, and that was, you know, when you first applied for this, you sounds like you're a reasonable actor. You know, you don't assume anything's going to land until it actually does. So I assume it sounds like you didn't really think what this may become for you. When it got sold, was it made clear to you that this is going to be something?
Well, no one knows if it's anything is going to
Right.
be something in our business. You know that as well as I.
Right.
In TV and films and stage shows, musicals, you do your best, and you gather around you. You know, you hope are talented people who are also doing their best. There's no formula. If there was a formula, there'd be no flops.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So you never know. I kind of look at it like, like I say, you surround yourself with all these people. You hope you have a good idea, or somebody does, and you work hard. And at some point, if you're lucky, the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts,
Right.
like the perfect storm. And you can't reduce that in a scientific sense.
Right.
You can't take apart the Monkees or Jersey Boys or
Right.
Star Trek. You can't take it apart and say, oh, well, Star Trek was a big hit because of William Shatner. Oh, no, it was a big hit because of the special effects. It was a big hit because of Leonard Nimoy. It was,
Right.
or the Monkees, you know, it was us, or it was the music, or it was the writing, or anything. You really can't reduce it and take it apart because it doesn't work like that.
Right.
The whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts, and you got a hit on your hands. Yeah. And you can't just try to duplicate it, which people try to do all the time.
Right.
And that's my sort of philosophy.
So you have
so
this,
when we started, of course not. We had no idea.
Yeah. So you have this, some of the parts though that did come together, and it's all happens at the same time. You know, it's 1966. Last Train to Clarksville, you know, drops. A couple days later, the show starts. Pretty soon, you have a #1 hit on your hands. Not only is it a #1 hit, but you're the lead singer on it. So did it just feel like you took off and suddenly were a passenger on this ride, or was there some sense of organization to you?
Well, no, because you see, to some degree, I'd been through it before.
Right.
10 years earlier, exactly almost to the day, and the same studio. In fact, we filmed on the same stage at times that I filmed Circus Boy on. And when I got the pilot and I went onto the lot in Hollywood at the same studio, it was the same guard on the gate. He said, "Hey, Mickey, you got a new show. Good." It was only 10 years. And, at that age, 10 years is a long time. But you think about it right now, 10 years was 2010. I mean, that's that's not a long time ago.
No.
And so, no, I'd been through it before. And so a lot of it came, it was a little bit of a grain of salt. I was like, I got another show. I got another series. And when's my wardrobe call? And so when I got the call sheets but it didn't go on the air, of course, until a few months after we started filming. But then we were sort of like in any show, pretty much incommunicado. You're on the set, no social media, nothing like that, of course, back then. So we were told, I was told, the show's doing pretty well. And Clarksville went to #1 in Cashbox. And I remember saying, "What's Cashbox?" I wasn't in the music business per se.
Right.
I was in television and film and acting. But I was singing. I'd been in bands and I had recorded before the Monkees, but it was obviously pretty huge.
Right.
And it wasn't until, and I've told this story, but I'll give it to you briefly. It wasn't until Christmas of '66, the year the show came out in September, so 3 months later. And we were told, it's pretty successsul, but back then they couldn't find you. Even there was no paparazzi and no one knew how to find anybody. So we just would, come out of the show and off the lot and go home and then come back the next day. And we hadn't been on the road, hadn't done much of any publicity or promotion or anything. So, but I went to Christmas shopping for that year.
Mm-hmm.
And same place, same mall I went to every year of my life in the valley here, in San Fernando Valley. And I had my shopping list, and this is December. We had a hiatus, and I got out of my car, and I went through the big doors, glass doors, and all of a sudden, I heard screaming, and there was all these people running at me. And I thought it was a fire. So I hold open the door and I'm like, "Don't panic, slow down, don't run, this way. And then I realized they were all running at me. All these kids had recognized me on this Saturday afternoon at a mall. And I had to leave. I was pissed off. I couldn't do my shopping. I had to send my assistant to do the shopping.
So you sounds
then
like
I knew. Then I kind of knew. Then I knew. Yeah.
So then you obviously you start to tour. You have to explain to me how it is you get connected with Jimi Hendrix to open up for him. But he opened for us. Seriously, I guess the timing is right. Of course.
Jimmy. He did okay, but he did okay with it, with or without the Monkees. He would have been fine, I'm sure. I'd seen him actually in New York, sideman for another band, John Hammond Group, I think it was, and in the Village in New York. And he was still Jimmy John at the time, right?
Yeah.
And somebody said, "You got to see this guy play guitar with his teeth," and it was it. That's what he was known as, like. And
yeah.
And that was would have been early '60s, sometime in '66 or whatever. And then the next time I saw him, he was on stage at the Monterey Pop Festival, and he wasn't well known yet, but he'd gone to England and picked up Mitch and Noel, and Chaz Chandler, the manager, had essentially put together the Jimi Hendrix Experience with Mitch and Noel. And I saw him walk on stage, and I recognized him. I said, "Hey, that's the guy that plays guitar with his teeth." And we were looking for an opening act for the first tour.
Right.
And I suggested them to our producers. I said, that'd be a great opening act, very colorful, very theatrical. Right. And you know what I mean by theatrical. The Monkees was essentially a theatrical act.
Right.
It was like, it was actually John Lennon that made the, oh, did I drop that name? Sorry.
You can drop that name.
That compared the Monkees to the Marx Brothers, and that was very accurate, much more than comparing the Monkees to the Beatles. It was much more like the Marx Brothers on television, a little musical, a little bit of a day at the Monkees, kind of thing. And so I said that act is very theatrical, and like we are. And I guess they liked the idea. So sure enough, they were the opening act. Jimmy was the opening act for the Monkees for, I think it was like 6 or 8 shows, and then he broke his first single, and of course went on to headline.
Right. That's amazing. That's I mean, I imagine you have so many stories to tell, but that's got to be a good one. That time that this unknown Jimi Hendrix opened up for the Monkees.
He was great. He was a lovely guy, very quiet, very very streetwise, but kind of naive about the business and young, just like me, only a year or two older than I was, and we got along great. We had we had great time, hanging out on the tour. And of course, he was just incredible musician, unbelievable. Yeah.
So the Monkees had an amazing career. You guys did split up in 1970, but it seems like
the show. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. It's more accurate to say that the show was canceled, or they didn't pick up the show. Right. NBC didn't pick up the show. And the Monkees was a television show. People misunderstand. They think the Monkees was a group. And it wasn't. The Monkees was a television show about a group, an imaginary group that didn't exist except in the context of the television show. It was about this imaginary group that lived in this imaginary beach house in Malibu, which was a set, of course, at Columbia Studios, and which does beg the question of how we could afford a Malibu beach house when we never got any work.
Yeah.
But that's what it was. So the group didn't split up because there wasn't a group. It was this cast of a television. The closest thing that's kind of come along, I think, over the years is something like Glee, which was a television show about an imaginary glee club, an imaginary school. But they could all do it. They could all sing and act and dance and play. And so that's essentially what the Monkees was. And you'll appreciate that it was like a little musical on television.
Yeah, I mean, you said yourself, though, that on tour you sort of eventually morphed into like a real life rock band.
Well, that's part of the interesting story. Yeah.
Right.
That Mike Nesmith, the way he put it was, we all of a sudden Pinocchio became alive. and there's some truth there. But having said that, they hired us, they cast us because we could sing and play.
Right.
That was part of the audition process. You had to be able to sing and play an instrument. So clearly they had in mind that if it all went well, we would end up on the road and perform live, like Glee. I believe that they went out on the road. They do,
absolutely.
And did, and the Kids in Fame, say, or whatever. They must have had that in mind. Of course, back in 1966, that kind of thing was unheard of. There was very little crossover between television and live performance and radio and the record industry, and that's what was so unusual. And it kind of caught a lot of people by surprise, I think.
Yeah. Well, while the show did go into syndication and sort of come back, the truth is whether or not it was born out of a television show, you have managed to continue touring, having even throughout the years with reunions. I mean, you've continued to sort of hit the road, and there was a quote from you saying that touring is tough even at 20 years old. Did you ever, even though it was born out of this, and as you continued touring, did you ever sort of wish you had a break? Because it sounds like you never really did. Like your bags were always packed, you were always on the road somewhere. Did you ever kind of hope that you would get that break? Were you tired? I know.
Well, I did. I did through a series of fortunate coincidences. After the Monkees, excuse me. After the Monkees, when the show went off the air, I kind of did rest on my laurels for a while and hung out and kind of partied. But I also knew, I think intuitively, that I wasn't going to get any work as a serious actor, because I would go to an audition, interview for a show, acting gig, and they would say, "We don't need any drummers. Why are you here?" So I was like, "Oh, I got." But I was up for a few things after the Monkees. I was up for Happy Days as the Fonz. And my understanding, and I talked to Henry about this years later, it was down to him and I for the Fonz, for Happy Day. And I'm so glad he got it, because I never could have done it as well as he did. He was and is the Fonz. But I was also interested. I'd already been in the business, remember, as a child star and as a star for like 12, 15 years by that time or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so I was looking to move on, and I wanted to do production, directing, do directing. So I started a little production company, and I was doing commercials and little videos and things and documentary stuff. And I got lucky. I went to England. I was married to an English woman, and so I could work there. And I went to do a play, as a matter of fact, The Point by Harry Nilsson. It was at the Mermaid Theatre in London. And I was only going to be there for 3 months. It was a little limited 3-month run. But I brought my directing reels that I had, and I directed on the Monkees. I directed an episode of the Monkees. And I got lucky, and I got a job at the BBC directing drama, of all things. And I did that. And then I got a gig directing a multi-camera sitcom at another television company. And I just thought, this is kind of too good to be true. And so in one of those things, I came for 3 months and stayed 15 years. And so during that period of time, from the mid-'70s to late '80s, I was a television director, producer in England. And almost exclusively, that's all I did until the '80s, until the mid-'80s, with the Monkee reunion. But I only was going to take a hiatus off of directing and producing a television show for a few months. And of course, it turned into this huge thing. But that was kind of a break from it. It was good. It got me back from it. It took me out of it. I got out of the loop. And I didn't sing, didn't do any acting, didn't do any performing, nothing for years and years. And it was good. It gave me a chance to kind of back off from it.
Well, recently, obviously, I think people are calling it the Great Pause. We've sort of had another one of these opportunities to stop. Has it? I know whether it be directing or otherwise, you're a busy guy. Has this pause been, a blessing for you?
Has it been what?
Has it been a blessing for you? Obviously, the reason for it is not great, but a lot of people, this sort of refresh that this has turned into has been really helpful.
You put it very well. I hate to use the word enjoy because of all the problems and all the tragedy that's gone along with it. But I have enjoyed having the break. I unpacked my suitcase and put it in the garage for the first time in probably 20 years or something like that. Because, yeah, my life has been for a few decades, you know, a lot of traveling. And like we say in this business, they pay us to travel. We sing for free.
Right.
And I don't like traveling, unfortunately. I don't travel well. I'm like a fine wine. I should be just lying on my side in the dark, you know, gathering dust. Yeah, right. So I have enjoyed it, you know, to some degree. And it has been refreshing. It's been, you know, it's been really interesting, you know, introspective. You know, and I've been doing a lot of working in my wood shop, gardening, and fishing.
Perfect. Perfect. That is nice. So, I mean, you were supposed to be touring with Mike Nesmith in the spring, and you just recently dropped a new album, the Mike and Micky Show Live, and I thought it was cool that's even out on vinyl. So I think I read that this is the first album that's been released for the Monkees since Davey and Peter passed. Is that correct?
Yes. Oh no, sorry. Mike and Peter and I, released an album called Good Times a few years ago after David had passed.
Right.
But there were songs on the album that David had sung because we found some tracks from the 60s, which he had sung on. So we resurrected those. This is the first live album, first Monkee live album ever. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I actually have a performance from that. It's a great performance of the song that sort of launched you guys out into the music world from the television world, Last Train to Clarksville. And I'd love to share that today, especially since you're singing lead on it anyway. So everybody, here is Last Train to Clarksville.
Oh, cool.
Wow, hello, hi, Take the last train to Clarksville. I'll meet you at the station. Can be here by 4:30. I made your reservation. Don't be slow. No. 'Cause I'm leaving in the morning. I must see you again. We'll have one more night together till the morning brings my train and I must go. No. And I don't know if I'm ever coming home. Take the last train to Clarksville. I'll meet you at the station. We'll have time for coffee, flavor, kisses, and a bit of conversation. Oh, no. Take the last train to Clarksville. I must hang up the phone. Can't hear you in this noisy railroad station. All alone, I'm feeling low. No. And I don't know if I'm ever coming home. Take the last train to Clarksville. I'll meet you at the station. Can be here by 4:30. I made your reservation. Don't be slow. No. And I don't know if I'm ever coming home. Take the last train to Clarksville. Take the last train
Awesome.
Yeah, the one who started it all.
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting us share that. Micky, it's been a pleasure talking with you. And I hope that we get an opportunity again. I don't know if you realize that the event that you actually submitted your video to long ago, this is our 10th year that we've been doing it in Las Vegas. And even better, we are this close to reaching the $1 million raise mark. So,
oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So I'm just going to quickly throw this up there for anybody who's in the Las Vegas area or even outside, because it's going to be virtual and you want to watch it. It'll be on October 18th. Check out nfhope.org to get more information. I'll have that link down there. I will also have links, Micky, to information about the Mike and Micky Show Live. So people want to get that, they can get it. Links to your website to learn more about you if they don't already know plenty about you from this interview. And then next week, everybody, if you're here in Las Vegas, you know John Katzilamides. We're going to start focusing in on those people who have supported the NF Hope concert here in Las Vegas for so many years. And John's been a huge supporter over at the Review Journal. So join us next week. Micky, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
And for those who are interested and want to help us get to that $1 million goal, check out nfnetwork.org and you can do it. Until then, we will see you next Thursday at 11:30. Thanks.